It was early morning at Arlington National Cemetery. The sky was soft gray, and a gentle wind moved across the long rows of white marble headstones. The world seemed quiet, as if even nature wanted to remain silent here. At the center of it all stood the tomb of the unknown soldier, guarded as it always was. Every step, every turn, every motion of the guard carried meaning. The clicking of the boots against the stone echoed with rhythm, steady and perfect. Among the visitors that day was a man named Ethan Ross. He was in his early 30s, tall, strong, and confident. He wore a black t-shirt that read Karate National Champion. He was known among his friends for showing off his fighting skills online. On social media, he loved to say that no one could stand against his moves. He believed his body and mind were stronger than most men's. His videos showed him breaking bricks, kicking wooden boards, and flipping people easily in his training hall. He had come to Washington, D.C. for a tournament, but when the competition ended, he decided to visit Arlington before returning home. His friend told him about the tomb guards, elite soldiers who watched over the unknown soldier's grave 24 hours a day, no matter the weather. They're known for their discipline, the friend said. Don't mess with them. They don't even flinch during storms. Ethan laughed. Come on, he said. They just march back and forth. I could teach them a few moves. Real defense, real power. His pride made him smile in a way that showed he didn't take the warning seriously. So that morning, he arrived at the tomb with a small group of tourists. Families stood quietly, parents holding their children's hands. Veterans watched with tears in their eyes. Every person felt the weight of that sacred place, except Ethan. He looked around, saw the guard marching slowly, turning precisely every few seconds. The rifle rested across his shoulder, his face unreadable, his posture sharp like steel. The silence of the place seemed to press on everyone, but Ethan, standing with crossed arms, only smirked. That's it, he whispered to a man next to him. He just walks around? The man gave him a warning look. You should stay quiet, he said softly. This is sacred ground. Ethan shrugged. I'm just saying, I've seen better balance in a dojo. He's just doing drills. The man turned away, uncomfortable. A few people nearby heard the comments, but nobody wanted to argue. The rules were clear, silence and respect. But Ethan didn't stop. He took a few steps forward, past a small sign that read silence and respect. He folded his arms and laughed quietly. You call that guarding? He said under his breath, but his voice carried further than he thought. The tomb guard turned. His movements were slow, smooth, controlled. He faced Ethan with calm precision. The air suddenly felt heavier, the kind of silence that made everyone's heart beat faster. Sir, the guard said, his voice firm but polite, please remain behind the barrier and maintain silence. Ethan smirked. Relax, soldier. I'm just watching. You are requested to remain silent. Sir, the guard repeated. Tone steady but stronger now. People were watching. A mother pulled her young son closer. A group of veterans frowned. Someone whispered, he doesn't know what he's doing. But Ethan didn't care. The attention only fueled his pride. He stepped closer to the barrier and said, you think you can stop me if I cross that line? I've trained for 15 years. I could take anyone down in one move. That was when the guard moved again. He didn't yell, didn't argue. He simply turned back to his post, his rifle across his shoulder, continuing the ceremony as if nothing had happened. That calm response made Ethan feel ignored, and that bothered him more than anything. He clenched his fists, took another step closer. His voice grew louder. Hey, I'm talking to you. You think this is some kind of show? You want to see real skill? One of the other guards stationed nearby subtly signaled to security. But before they could reach the area, Ethan made a mistake he would never forget. He crossed the line. It was only one step, but in that sacred space, it was a step too far. The guard stopped mid-march. His boots hit the ground sharply. He turned in a single perfect motion, a precision that years of training had shaped. His right hand moved to hold his rifle firmly. His eyes, hidden behind his glasses, focused straight on Ethan. The guard's voice broke the air, calm yet carrying immense weight. Remain behind the barrier. The sound echoed off the marble walls. Everyone froze. Even the birds seemed silent. Ethan felt his pride twist inside him. He wanted to prove something. He didn't even know what anymore. Maybe he thought it would be funny. Maybe he just didn't want to be embarrassed. He took one more bold step forward, his chest high, his hands raised. "All right, tough guy," he said, half laughing. "Show me how you—" He didn't finish the sentence. In a blink, the guard moved. It wasn't a strike born of anger. It was defense born of control. The motion was fluid, practiced thousands of times. With one precise turn, the guard shifted his stance, lowered his body slightly, and redirected Ethan's movement with a controlled grip and a shift of balance. Ethan's feet left the ground. It happened so fast he didn't even have time to react. He hit the ground hard, not from a blow, but from his own forward momentum redirected against him. The guard hadn't attacked. He had simply neutralized the threat, exactly as trained. The air filled with gasps. A woman screamed softly. A man whispered. He dropped him with one move. Ethan lay there, shocked, the breath knocked out of him. His hands trembled as he tried to sit up. The guard, still composed, didn't take a single step closer. His face stayed calm, his posture steady, rifle held across his chest. He said nothing more. The security officers arrived from the side gate, jogging toward them. The guard stepped back smoothly, allowing them to do their job. Ethan was pulled up to his feet, his pride bruised more than his body. His face turned red as he looked around. Dozens of eyes were on him, phones recording, people shaking their heads. The silence in that moment felt heavier than any words could. One of the officers said quietly, "Sir, you need to leave the area immediately." Ethan tried to speak but couldn't find the words. His throat felt dry. He glanced once more at the guard, who stood tall, unmoving. Returning to his steady march as though nothing had happened, the officers led Ethan away, toward the parking area. No one clapped. No one laughed. The visitors simply turned back toward the tomb, watching the guard resume his solemn duty. Every step echoed through the quiet air, the same perfect rhythm as before. As Ethan walked away, a strange feeling settled in his chest. It wasn't anger. It was something else, something heavy. He thought about what had just happened. That guard hadn't fought with hate. He hadn't even raised his voice beyond a command. He had moved like someone protecting something sacred. Ethan had tried to challenge him like an opponent in a ring, but the guard was something different. He wasn't there to fight. He was there to honor. The crowd slowly dispersed, but people kept whispering about what they saw. An old veteran with medals on his jacket said quietly to his wife, "That soldier did exactly what he was trained to do. Controlled, respectful, professional." That night, as the cemetery lights glowed faintly across the fields, the tomb guard continued his watch. He didn't know his actions had already gone viral online. Someone had recorded the moment, and within hours, millions of people would see it, a man challenging a tomb guard, only to be dropped with calm precision in one effortless move. But at that hour, the guard wasn't thinking about fame or attention. His steps remained steady, the rifle moving across his shoulder with perfect discipline. His duty was the same as always: to guard, to honor, and to protect the silence that surrounded the unknown soldier. And somewhere across town, Ethan sat alone in his hotel room, watching the video on his phone. He replayed it again and again, each time seeing the moment from a different angle. Not one part of the guard's movement looked angry or careless. It was controlled, clean, and full of quiet power. For the first time in his life, Ethan Ross, the man who believed strength was about muscles and speed, saw another kind of strength, one built on discipline, calm, and honor. He stared at the screen, hearing his own voice echoing from the video. Realizing how foolish it had sounded against that soldier's silence, he turned the phone off, sat back, and closed his eyes. In that quiet moment, even he couldn't deny the truth. He had gone there to prove he was strong, but he had walked away understanding what real strength truly was. When the video spread across the internet, people everywhere couldn't stop watching it. It was posted on news channels, shared on social media, and talked about in every online group. The clip lasted less than a minute, a man stepping toward the tomb guard, a single quick motion, and then silence. But it wasn't the fall that caught people's attention. It was the guard's calm face, his control, and the way he simply returned to his duty afterward. As if nothing had happened, viewers began commenting things like, "That's what true discipline looks like, and he didn't hurt the man. He just protected the honor of the tomb." Others wrote, "This guard showed what respect really means." The U.S. Army released a short statement the next day. It said, "The tomb of the unknown soldier is guarded every day, every hour, by soldiers who have trained to the highest standards of respect and discipline." What was seen in the recent video was not an act of anger, but of duty and control. These men and women represent the best of our values. The name of the guard was not released, but many recognized him from earlier ceremonies. He was Sergeant Michael Daniels, a man known among his unit for quiet strength. His fellow soldiers said he had spent years perfecting every movement and learning how to stay calm under any pressure. To him, the tomb wasn't just a post, it was a sacred promise. Meanwhile, Ethan Ross, the man in the video, couldn't sleep that night. The clip had reached millions of people, and his name was already being mentioned in comments. He didn't want to look at his phone, but curiosity made him open it anyway. The top comment read, "That's what happens when pride meets honor." Another said, "Maybe now he understands what real strength is." He scrolled quietly, reading words from strangers who didn't even know him, yet somehow spoke truth that hit him deep. It hurt his pride, but more than that, it made him think, for the first time. Ethan didn't feel like the confident fighter he always showed online. He felt small, not because of what people said, but because of what he had seen in that soldier's eyes. There had been no anger, no challenge, just duty. That calm expression had taught him something no tournament ever had. Days passed, and the noise online slowly faded. New stories appeared, and people moved on. But Ethan couldn't forget. The scene replayed in his mind every night, his own loud voice, the guard's calm warning, the single movement that put him on the ground. In the silence that followed, he began thinking about what the tomb represented. Those unknown soldiers who never came home. The men and women who gave everything and remained nameless but honored forever. He realized he had walked into a place that deserved silence, not pride. A week later, Ethan returned to his dojo. His students, boys and girls, teenagers and adults, gathered around, excited to see him. They had all seen the video too, and they looked at him with mixed expressions. Some wanted to laugh, others didn't know what to say. But before anyone could speak, Ethan said quietly, "Let's talk about respect today." The students looked surprised. Normally, he started class with energy, jokes, and demonstrations. But that day, his voice was serious, his eyes softer than before. "I made a mistake," he continued. "I thought strength was about being louder, faster, or tougher. But I learned something different. Real strength isn't in your fists, it's in your control." He didn't mention the tomb guard by name, but every student knew what he was talking about. He told them how that soldier stood in silence, how he stayed calm even when provoked, and how his discipline spoke louder than any punch could. That class ended differently from all others. There was no cheering or loud noise, just quiet thought. Ethan bowed to the students and said, "If you ever want to be strong, learn to be respectful first." Months went by. Ethan stopped posting flashy videos. Instead, he began sharing lessons about humility and honor. His followers noticed the change. Some said he'd grown wiser, others said he'd become boring. But Ethan didn't care. He knew now that attention wasn't the same as respect. One morning, while reading the news online, he saw an article titled "The Silence of the Tomb Guard, A Lesson in Discipline." It described the life of the guards, their training, and their sense of duty. It said they spent hours each day perfecting every movement, memorizing every step, even learning how to stand perfectly still under rain or snow without flinching. Ethan stared at the screen, reading every line slowly. He learned that tomb guards often serve for years, giving up personal comfort to protect that small piece of ground where fallen soldiers rest. They guard in every season, summer heat, winter cold, storms, and dark nights. Something moved inside him as he realized how different that was from his own world. He had spent years training his body, but those men trained their souls. 1 week later, Ethan made a decision. He returned to Arlington quietly, without his friends, without a camera, and without his pride. He wore a simple shirt and jeans. He walked alone through the cemetery, passing rows of graves that seemed to stretch forever. Each one held a story, a life, a piece of history. When he reached the tomb, he saw the guards changing shift, one stepping forward, the other saluting before leaving. The motion was perfect, their timing exact. The air was still, and the sound of the boots clicking against the stone echoed softly. Ethan stood behind the rope line, hands at his sides. He didn't speak, didn't move, just watched. His heart beat slowly, filled with quiet respect. He thought of how foolish he had been before, and how much he had misunderstood that moment. As the ceremony ended, one of the guards, the same man from that day, passed by him. Ethan recognized him instantly. Though the soldier's expression was calm and unreadable, Ethan could feel the power in his silence. He took a step forward and spoke softly, not wanting to disturb the peace. "Sergeant," he said, "I'm sorry for what I did that day." The guard paused for just a moment. He didn't break formation, didn't smile, but gave a small nod before continuing his steps. It was a simple gesture, yet it meant everything to Ethan. That small nod was forgiveness. Or maybe it was acknowledgement. Either way, it was enough. Ethan stayed until the end of the shift, watching the precision, the rhythm, and the dedication. He felt no shame now, only gratitude. Before leaving, he whispered quietly, "Thank you for teaching me." After that day, he began volunteering to teach self-defense classes for veterans and kids. But he taught differently now. Every session started with silence. He told his students that silence was where strength began, that in a quiet mind, one could find real control. Years later, a journalist interviewed him for a story about how viral moments change people. She asked, "You were once known as the karate champ who challenged a tomb guard. What did that moment mean to you?" Ethan smiled faintly and said, "It meant everything. That guard showed me that being strong isn't about beating others. It's about honoring what's right." He didn't need to fight. He just stood for something bigger than himself. I learned more in 1 second on that ground than in 15 years of training. The article went viral again, but this time, not for laughter or shock. People shared it with words like respect, growth, redemption. Even some soldiers shared it, saying he got the message. Meanwhile, Sergeant Daniels continued his duty for several more years before retiring with honor. He never talked about that day publicly. To him, it was just another moment of service, one of many in his long watch at the tomb. But to Ethan and to millions who saw it, it became a story about humility and real strength. On the 10th anniversary of that incident, Ethan returned once more to Arlington. His hair had begun to gray, but his eyes were peaceful. He brought no cameras, no phone, no audience. He carried only a single white flower. He placed it near the fence line and bowed his head. For a long moment, he just stood there, letting the silence surround him. The guard on duty, a young soldier who didn't even know who he was, passed by in perfect rhythm. Ethan watched him, smiling softly. He whispered, "Keep standing strong." Then he turned and walked away slowly, his heart light and his spirit calmed out as he left. The echo of the guard's steps followed him, steady, controlled, endless, just like the lesson that had changed his life forever. That day, as the sun set behind the cemetery and the shadows stretched long across the marble stones, the tomb guard continued his watch. And somewhere in the quiet crowd, a man who had once challenged him walked away, finally understanding that some battles are not meant to be fought. They are meant to be respected.